Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? Let me know with a comment. I recently worked on the adult unit. They floated me over. I was expecting to work on adolescent that morning, and then they just kind of floated me over that morning, and I stepped onto the adult unit, and it was a profound experience for me because I have had very little in way of really strong experience working with adults with severe mental illness. Probably the most profound experience of that day on the adult unit was working with uh, uh, individuals suffering from different forms of delusions. And I can think of two individuals specifically. One had this belief that something terrible was going to happen to her family. And she would experience these kinds of highs and lows, a schizoaffective sort of diagnosis. And another man was sort of obsessed with these images of authority figures, and that he made all these mistakes in the past, and that there was some kind of queen or royalty that was going to do something terrible. But there was this interesting image of an authority figure, and then sort of an externalization outwards towards the authority figure, sort of like this need for someone really in authority. And he would do that with me, he would do that with the physician, but was really obsessed, really very delusional, um, and it was just profound experience to see really what the mind is capable of when it gets this sick. And it had me sort of thinking, because I used to be so interested in what I would consider more severe mental illness, but I've spent so much time working with adolescents, and that doesn't mean that adolescents aren't as important, but it's a different really expression of symptoms, right? Because we are really dealing with the early sort of aspects of developing more severe psychopathology with adolescents. So primarily, what I see with adolescents is really, you know, that first sort of suicide sort of gesture, or passive suicidal ideation, um, or perhaps there is some kind of psychotic like feature, but when we are able to work clinically with the child or the adolescent, we typically don't see the kind of disorganized, or what we think of as like negative symptoms, or even positive symptoms like the hallucinations and delusions, in the same way we see it with adults. In fact, it really sort of blends with what you would consider something like a personality disorder. So you see this great overlap with the kids between personality and psychotic symptoms, and it's so much messier, you know. And we can treat kids with antipsychotics, but 9 times out of 10, the antipsychotics are really just controlling behavior. They are controlling behavior, and as I've articulated, based off of my understanding of affective neuroscience, the dopamine blockers, the antipsychotics, they block the seeking system. So they really do prevent thoughts and feelings from really making it to the frontal cortex in the same way. So really we're kind of excuse me, we're kind of preventing the severity of thoughts and feelings from really coming to the surface in a way that might lead to some kind of behavioral disturbance, like self-harm or hurting another person. So, yeah, it was profound to work with the adults. I'm excited to try to really broaden my experience before I go back to nurse practitioner school. I've recently kind of been looking at a different path to doing what I'd like to do that's a bit more financially, fiscally uh, reasonable and responsible. Uh, there is a local state college here that offers an online psychiatric nurse practitioner program, but it also offers standalone courses, which are essentially the core component of any nurse practitioner curriculum. So I think I'm going to try to take them as standalone courses, and then hopefully by either next January or summer, I'll be enrolled as a nurse practitioner student, or at the very least have completed some of, if not at least most of my core for entering into a nurse practitioner program, and I will be completely free of debt because I'll be working as I pursue that. So it's kind of an exciting opportunity for me. As many of you know, I get bored, very, very bored, and I'm pretty obsessed with getting busy clinically, trying to experiment to see like what happens. I mean, I even ask people, what antidepressant are you on? How are you feeling? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? I just do this because I want to know what is the ebb and the flow with your hormones, with your emotional systems, and how are you appraising this, self-appraising this, and how can we kind of move into sort of more of a therapeutic relationship to better ascertain, what works for you, right? I love it. I love it so much. And before I kind of end this video, I also worked with another patient who wasn't as severely ill in the sense of psychosis, but was extremely depressed, had a serious history of trauma. And I found with her the pattern of compliance and helplessness and dependence. And there was this generalized anxiety, right, towards her history and her family, that the things that had happened to her uh, were sort of like determining her to a life of helplessness. That she was afraid of the fact that her past was the way it was. She was literally afraid of something that didn't exist. She was, in some sense, obsessed with the prospect of being anxious over the fact that she was helpless at one point. And so the helplessness is still there. And we were talking about really her understanding of how the medicines may be helping her or not, and really the limits of the psychotropics. And it was such a beautiful experience of what I believe to be informed consent. I had such a profound sort of rapport with her. We were able to discuss, and really I ended that sort of conversation with this sense of I am letting her embody herself responsibly. I'm going to bring to her what I do know, but I'm going to let her make claims. I'm going to let her make assertions. I'm just going to kind of guide her to really having a stronger sense of self. And this is actually something that is key with everybody, but in this case there was certainly a compliant pattern, an agreeable pattern, sort of that feminine psychopathology that we think of more generally with people who are highly compassionate, high in trait agreeableness, who want to help people. There is a way of being compassionate. There is a way of helping that is selfish, not necessarily integrating the whole sort of personality, right? So with that all being said, I wanted to make a new video because I hadn't in a few days. And I want to bring to you the fact that I am moving forward, and I've actually very much enjoyed the process of being exposed to all these clinical populations. It's been really cool. So take good care. See you later. Bye-bye.